Chapter 14. Flint's Treasure. We went to the boats near the stockade. Then we rowed round to the north of the island. The sun went down into the sea. It had been a long day and I was very tired. Captain Smollett had floated the Hispaniola off the beach at high tide. He had anchored the ship again in the deep water of the North Bay. We all went to Ben Gunn's cave. We made a big fire and cooked a meal. The bright light of the fire shone on hundreds of gold coins. The gold coins were Captain Flint's treasure. "So that is Flint's treasure," said Long John Silver. 700,000 pounds. Many men have died for that money. I was silent. I stared at the gold. Yes, men had died for the money. Silver had killed some of them himself. The next day we began to carry the gold to the Hispaniola. There were Spanish pieces of 8 and also English, French, and Portuguese coins. Day after day the work went on. We watched for the pirates, but we did not see them. There was food and drink at the stockade. We also left food at Ben Gunn's cave. We were going to leave the pirates on the island, but they would have plenty of food. As soon as all the gold was loaded on the ship, we left the island. We were a small crew, and everyone had to work very hard. Silver cooked the food in the galley. He had brought his parrot back from the stockade. The parrot sat in its cage in the galley. "Pieces of 8! Pieces of 8!" screamed the parrot. We sailed the ship round to the south of the island. We saw 3 pirates standing on the beach. We sailed as close to them as we could. "Don't leave us!" cried the pirates. "Don't leave us here to die." Dr. Livesey called to them. He told them about Ben Gunn's cave. He told them there was food in the cave and in the stockade. We sailed north into the Gulf of Mexico. When we reached land, we anchored the ship. There were many trees growing near the coast. Small boats came out from the shore, and the Indians brought us fruit and water. There was an English ship nearby. Captain Smollett, Squire Trelawney, Dr. Livesey, and I rowed over to the ship in one of the small boats. We told our story to the ship's captain. When we returned to the Hispaniola, Silver was gone. He had taken the other small boat and 3,000 pounds. He was a pirate, a murderer and thief. But I had liked the man. We never saw or heard of him again. In England, we shared the treasure. We each had some of the money. Captain Smollett bought himself a house on the coast. From there, he could see ships sailing to all parts of the world. Squire Trelawney was now a very rich man. He went back to live in the big white house on the hill. Dr. Livesey became a wealthy doctor in London. Ben Gunn spent his money in 3 weeks and became a beggar. My mother and I bought a fine large inn and had many servants. The rest of my money paid for me to study. I did not want any more adventures. I did not want to go to sea again, but I wanted to write about my adventures. And now you have read my story. Sometimes I wake up at night. I can hear the sea around Treasure Island. I can hear the voice of Long John Silver's parrot, Captain Flint, calling, "Pieces of 8, pieces of 8, pieces of 8. The end. Thank you for listening. A. Answer the following questions. 1. When Squire Trelawney and his friends leave Treasure Island for England, what is the number of all the crew on the Hispaniola? They are all 6 people. Squire Trelawney, Captain Smollett, Dr. Livesey, Jim Hawkins, Long John Silver, and Ben Gunn. 2. What happens to Ben Gunn at the end of the story? He spent his money in 3 weeks and became a beggar. 3. John Silver was a pirate, a murderer and thief. But I had liked the man. Who said this? Jim Hawkins did. 4. How much of the treasure does John Silver take? He takes 3,000 pounds. 5. What happens to Dr. Livesey at the end of the story? He became a wealthy doctor in London. B. Draw a circle around the most correct answer. 1. What happens to Squire Trelawney at the end of the story? He, A, becomes very poor. B, lives in a small house on the hill. C, returns to Treasure Island. D. Becomes a very rich man. 2. How many pirates do Dr. Livesey and his friends see standing on the beach at the end of the story? A. 6 pirates. B. 3 pirates. C. 4 pirates. D. Only 2. 3. What happens to Captain Smollett at the end of the story? He, A. returns to Treasure Island. B. becomes poor. C. buys himself a house on the coast. D. lives in Scotland. Or Long John Silver is a pirate. B. murderer. C. thief. D. all the above. 5. At the end of the story, Jim Hawkins says, A. I want to go to Treasure Island again. B. I don't want any more adventures. C. I love sea voyages. D. I want to go to the sea again. 6. When Dr. Livesey and his friends leave Treasure Island, they leave food and drinks in the A cave. B. stockade. C. both A and B. D. Hispaniola. 7. At the end of the story, Jim Hawkins, A. likes Long John Silver. B. doesn't like. C. hates. D. kills Long John Silver. 8. When Squire Trelawney and his friends leave the island, they leave A. food and drink on the island for the pirates. B. nothing for the pirates. C. some money for the pirates. D. some boats for the pirates. 9. What happens to the treasure when Dr. Livesey and his friends return to England safely? A. They share the rest of the treasure. B. Each has some of the money. C. both A and B. D. All the treasure is stolen by Long John Silver. 10. In the end of the story, Long John Silver, A. went to South America. B. died. C. went to Mexico. D. disappeared. 11. What happens to the treasure when they reach England? A. John Silver takes it all. B. Squire Trelawney takes half of it. C. They share it. D. Pirates steal it. 12. What happened to Long John Silver at last? A. They never saw or heard of him again. B. He became a beggar. C. He bought an inn. D. He went back to Treasure Island. 13. At the end of the story, Ben Gunn spent his money in 3 weeks and became a beggar in the end. B. bought a beautiful house and lived happily. C. became a rich man. D. went back and lived on Treasure Island. C. Decide whether the following statements are true or false. 1. At the end of the story, Dr. Livesey becomes a very poor doctor in London. 2. At the end of the story, Dr. Livesey and his friend never see or hear of Long John Silver again. 3. At last the treasure was found in Ben Gunn's cave. 4. When Dr. Livesey and his friends leave Treasure Island, they take all the rest of the pirates with them in the Hispaniola. 5. Jim Hawkins and his mother buy a fine, large inn at the end of the story. 6. Long John Silver was a pirate, a murderer, and a thief. 7. Long John Silver was a pirate, a murderer, and a thief. But Jim Hawkins had liked him. 8. Jim Hawkins didn't want any more adventures. He didn't want to go to sea again. One. Where is Flint's treasure? In a cave on the north of the island. 2. What is Flint's treasure? Flint's treasure is 700,000 pounds in gold coins. These coins include Spanish pieces of 8 and also English, French, and Portuguese coins. 3. What happens to each of these people? A. Long John Silver. He took one of the small boats and disappeared with 3,000 pounds. They never saw or heard of him again. Captain Smollett? Captain Smollett bought himself a house on the coast. From his house he could see ships sailing to all parts of the world. C. Dr. Livesey. Dr. Livesey became a wealthy doctor in London. D. Ben Gunn. Ben Gunn spent his money in 3 weeks and became a beggar. E. Jim Hawkins. Jim Hawkins and his mother bought a fine, large inn and had many servants.